Has anyone ever honored one of those "if we're still single at 40 let's get married" commitments? How did it go? I had several pacts like this over the years. Within a year, they were all in serious relationships. I was like the wedding bargain matchmaker. All good though. Been with a great woman for almost 4 years now, and we were good friends for 7 years before that. Wanna make a pact with me? I could use a seriously relationship. Weird couple my wife knew had such a pact and followed through. Girl was a really introverted, quiet, homely type. Sweetest girl, but she never had a boyfriend as far as I knew, and we saw her off and on for 6 or 7 years. Then suddenly out of nowhere she invited us to her wedding. Anyways, it was to a guy we had met a couple of times who was one of her friends who seemed very much like her. My wife teased her that more must have been going on all that time, but she was straight up about it, and said no, they just decided it was time. Conversation was something like, yeah, you know how people have pacts to get married if neither of them are till they hit. Well, we just decided it really wasn't going to happen for either of us. And to cut that short, basically we were just like, cool, and then left it at that. Anyways, she married him. They looked happy. The speeches were a bit odd. They didn't really talk about love but a lot about how they were marrying their best friend. They are still together. It's gotta be at least 5 years. And they have a little kid. Last we saw them they looked happy and that's all that matters really. I have had one of those with my BFF. She turns 40 in a couple months and she is definitely single. We haven't spoken about it in over a decade. We are super close to this day, but I don't want to bring it up when she turns 40. I've tried a number of times to make the relationship happen and at this point I am just gonna accept that it isn't meant to be unless she brings it up. I love her, and I know she loves me too. I guess we'll see if she remembers and wants to follow through. But I'm not holding my breath. Narrator. He was holding his breath. Edit. I appreciate everything everybody has written. It's difficult to summarize my life and this relationship in a paragraph. Some of you have made good points, and some are understandably way off base. The encouragement is much appreciated. We ended up getting married at 30 instead. As it turns out we loved each other and made every excuse to ignore it. One of my closest friends told me she'd had a crush on me from the beginning. Last year. We've known each other 20 years. She's always been married and so have I. Later on she confessed it wasn't a crush but something that started with an L. But I wouldn't let her finish her word saying, let's not say anything that can't be unsaid. I have an immense affection for her as well, but I never let it get beyond that. In my mind. Because nothing is possible. We sat down much later and discussed things. It adds to the depth and breadth of our lives but nothing else will come if it. Turns out her husband has known forever. He and I are good friends. And my wife knew. And our friends in common knew too. Been in front of me for 20 years. Just never admitted to ourselves. I think, if memory serves, my wife and I had one of those. But we ended up together and married in our early 20s. Out of curiosity, if it went sideways and divorce happened, would you still honor the pact if you were both single when you reached the agreed upon age? I'd watch that rom-com. I know a couple at my church who were friends first, like best friends, and when they got in their 30s they still weren't engaged or married to anyone, so they decided to get married. They're still together and very much in love. Had one for 30 and moving in together. She was 7 years my senior and around that time we were both in a transient part of our lives. So I asked. She said no and moved across the country. Nope. Scoots 3,000 miles away to emphasize the point. That's cold. Rejected. With extreme prejudice. George Costanza. Had one to get married at 30. I got married before that and I don't think my friend took it well. We had sort of a strained relationship after and now we don't really talk much. Used to be best friends. Friends since we were 14 in high school. Made a pact in our early 20s about if we were 30. Childless. Unhappy, etc. Got married at 30. 7 years later it's still the best relationship we've ever had and going strong. How did the pact come up when you got 30? Also, congratulations. We were actually nearly 29 when it was brought up. We both recently got out of bad long-term relationships, caught a good metal concert, and went to grab some beers afterwards, and he just came out and said it casually. You remember that night when I still lived with my dad and we took all that acid and we said, so that night we started getting our feet wet with idea of dating each other, moved in together a couple months later, and got married on my 30th birthday. It wasn't for marriage. But in high school, I had a deal with my wife that if she was single at the time she'd go to prom with me. We ended up dating a few months after that, and have been together for 12 years now. I did that. I met her in high school. We grew apart over the years. We reconnected and said let's get married if we're both single when we're 40. Then we said f it. Let's go to Vegas and get married by Elvis. Our first kiss was Thanksgiving Day and we were married on December 17th. We're still going strong after 7 years. Longest relationship I've been in. Best decision of my life. P1 Let's get married when we're 40. P2 I agree, but I'm more into instant gratification, so let's skip the waiting part. P1 shrugs okay. I had one of these with my best female friend from high school, but it was 30 not 40. Meanwhile I've gotten married twice before 30 and she would have been my best man at both weddings, but she was in OCS the first time, deployed the second time. Doesn't seem meant to be, does it? All that said, if something weird happened and I was single and she remembered the pact, I'd absolutely hold up my side. Sounds like she won't attend any wedding you're in unless it's you and her lol. I did. I dated my first girlfriend when we were about 17 to 19. Then she broke up with me, but we had said such a thing before while we were still dating. We both had a few girlfriends over the years. But about 15 years later we met again and essentially said I really didn't find anyone with whom I felt like I did with you. But it wasn't with resignation, more of an epiphany. So we started dating again, and married soon after, and couldn't be happier. I made the pact with my best friend when we were 15 that if we were single by 30 we'd get married. We're 29 and still talk to each other daily. We're also both single. She also remembers the pact. Sweats. Edit 1. Let me see what she thinks about that pact. We'll let you know. Edit 2. We're talking. Edit 3. Part 1, Part 2, holy sh**. Edit 4. OMG, thanks for the plat. Face screaming in fear. I hear wedding bells. Why do I hear boss music? Why do I see a massive health bar at the bottom of my vision? Ha ha, I'm in danger. We didn't do this exactly, but when we were 19 we joked that we should get married if we're both 35 and single. 2 years later, I came home for a week from college. We hung out in our normal friend group, and she and I hooked up for the first time. We ended up starting a relationship. Got married when we were 27, and are still together at 30. Not a result of the pact obviously, but funny that we ended up married anyways. Sounds like the perfect opportunity to ask her to marry you at 35 and renew your vows to keep your pact. I didn't know this was actually a thing for other people. I had one of these though. Here's my story. My family has a summer place on a lake in another state where I have gone every summer since I was a baby. Other families did the same, so I grew up with these other families' kids. There was like 10 kids in our group and we spent almost every waking hour hanging out together. One of the girls in the group was about a year older and kinda shy and chubby. Not that it mattered though, we were just really good friends. Fast forward to our early 30s years. She had moved away from her small town much to the amazement of her family. It was the kind of small town that you were born in and would probably die in. Nobody ever left, but she did. She had a great job where she was able to make and save a ton of money. She had also lost weight and had become crazy beautiful. At the same time, most of our group of friends were getting married and working on having families. As a joke, one of our friends said, "Hey, if you two are still single when you hit 40, you have to marry each other." We had been drinking, so it was easy to get us to agree. Fast forward again. Before I hit 40, I met the love of my life and have 2 badass little ones. The girl from the lake had moved back to her little town and fell into the trap. She met a dude at a bar one night who got her pregnant and was never to be seen again. She was alone with her little one and to be close to her family. She remained in the little town and had abandoned the path of a successful life that she had been on before. We still see each other every summer, and my wife hates it. She says it's so obvious that she still has a crush on you. It's weird how when you look back you can see those decisions that seem small at the time but have a huge effect on life. I could have married her and she would have been in a better place now. But I would not be where I am now if I went down that road. Life is weird, man. A friend and I made a pact in college that we would marry each other if we're both single by the time I'm 30. I'm turning 30 in a few years. We barely spoke for the last 7 years. He now has a girlfriend and lives in another country. I don't think it's going to happen. My friend and I had something like that in high school, but it was 30 and we ended up dating until we turned 30 and got married. I told my boyfriend that I will marry him when I retire. Now I have to work for the rest of my life. He backed out of the room. Still wouldn't be as bad as that other comment where the woman changed coasts. Oh God, no. Mine was with my best friend's mother. She actually made a point of reminding me a few years ago. My husband and I were walking in the park and overheard a girl talking to her mom. She was whining about wanting to marry her mom, but her mom was listing the multiple reasons why that can't happen. One of the reasons was because she was already married to the girl's father. The girl got mad and said, "I hate you, Dad," and started punching her dad. Lol. Mine was with my son. When he was about 3-5, he realized that people grow up and get married and leave their families behind. He was having some kind of crisis about it. So I assured him that doesn't happen until you're really old. Like 30. He wailed, "I only wanna marry you." So I promised him that when he was 30, if he still wanted me to, I would marry him. He's 20 now and I'm starting to think it's not going to happen. My friend tried this as a proposal on his longtime friend and it worked so beautifully that I wanna try that out once. This is what basically happened. He asked the girl if she would like to be in a relationship with him if both of them were single after a certain age. The girl replied that it would be better than being single, so yeah. Then she asked at what age should we start dating each other, and then with a few seconds of the pretending to think expression, the boy said, "Well, how about 17, their age at that time?" I had one with a friend a while back, but at age 27, she was murdered 2 years ago. I turned 27 in January. Still hurts me heart. But I have an incredible woman now, but my memory of her is so great. I will answer after 10 years if I get someone to have such pact. You and me bro, let's do this. No homo. Nah man, just two dudes getting hitched, nothing gay about that. Yeah, and obviously we'll cuddle and receive the occasional drunken handjob. But no gay shit.